The voice of sharing. 旅人 ASEAN.
Hey, morning.
Morning. Hi, Arlene. How are you today?
I'm fine. It's such a tiring morning.
Yeah, yesterday was a crazy day because we went to that conference with that doctor. What was his name again?
I think it's Dr. Salah Abdul Mansour.
Yeah, he was the former information minister of Egypt who came down to almost like to get our sympathy, actually.
Yeah, interestingly, he explained to us about the inside story or inside scoop on Egyptian politics and the squabble between the opposition, the military, and also the Morsi's government.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get on with the news for today.
The first news is by CBC News. It's about Malaysian Airlines MH370 plane flight path to be re-examined. So an international panel of experts were re-examined all data gathered in the nearly 2-month hunt for the missing Malaysia jet. This is to ensure search crews who have been encountering a desolate path of ocean for the plane have been looking in the right place. And even the senior officials from Malaysia, Australia, and China will be meeting had met in the Australian capital to hush on the details of the next step of the search for the Malaysia Airline Flight 370, which will center around the expanded path of seafloor in a remote area of the Indian Ocean of Western Australia.
So yesterday we reported about how all these conspiracy theories are coming up, that they are linking it to Al-Qaeda now. And then today it seems that they are re-examined the flight's path. So they were actually not too sure about where the plane actually landed.
They are not too sure. And it's interesting that it's interesting to see that the flight path is everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere that people speculate, the missing plane might be. So, I mean, they should re-examine it because in that sense, we need to know they need to know, and as well as we need to know the exact location of the flight. I don't know how they do it, but it has to be done.
Yeah, and that search that they were carrying on for about 1 week was actually called off because no debris was found, no wreckage was found, and they just, I wouldn't say give up, but I guess they know that they're not searching in the right place. And it's really, I don't know, hasn't it been too long, and isn't there a proper technology that can tell us where the plane went?
That's true. But in a positive sense, like it seems, since the search has been transported to Australia instead of having it to be in Malaysia, I think the collaboration between Malaysia, Australia, and China has become better. In that sense, if you look at the press conference, the way they explain every day on, they brief to the journalists every day on what is actually happening and what they have done, has been actually better.
Okay. Let's move on to the next news, which is about heavily armed gunmen who robbed 4 boat engines near Lahad Datu. So 4 heavily gunmen clad in army fatigues were involved in a robbery in the waters of Tanjung Labian, some 135 kilometers from Sabah's east coast town of Lahad Datu. It is understood that the suspected pirates, who believed to have been armed with at least 3 M16 rifles, robbed 4 men of their outboard engines close to Sungai Bilis at about 11 p.m. on Sunday.
So these heavily armed gunmen, they robbed 4 boats of engineer Lahad Datu. What is their purpose for it? Has the authority done any investigation on that?
I think the security agencies have set up some patrols, and they're trying to track down these people who are suspected to be pirates. and they could actually be beyond the Malaysian Sea, but I don't think they have tracked them down. But yeah, there have been efforts. They have sent all their patrols out to track down the people.
And I think that security forces would probably be the Eastern Sabah Security Command, or ESCOM. It is famously being called as. So it seems like they are investigating the pirates were from the area of, or are they even foreigner or local. So the security agency has stepped up patrol in the area in bid to track down the pirates who could be beyond the Malaysian sea border. So we have a lot of pirates in the seas in Malaysia.
And I think it's very unfortunate for Lahad Datu because they are really on the, I would say, the outskirts of Sabah. They're kind of far away, and you know about the tragedy that happened last year with the Sulu gunmen, and
even recently with the kidnapping of tourists in the Sempurna.
Yeah, exactly.
So it shows that the area of East Malaysia is actually not that well guarded in terms of the border patrol, and also in terms of the pirate activities there.
So I guess the Malaysian government should pay more attention to Sabah and Sarawak. They always don't get enough attention, I think, and especially with all these things going on, and with the Lahad Datu incident that we had last year, that they came in and shot our police and killed a lot of people. I think they should really step up the security around there.
It's not just the security. I think the government needs to understand the politics and the history of that region, because a lot of the those pirates and also the Sulu people, gunmen, they seem to be or they seem to felt that they are historically linked to that particular region. So then before that, just to give a highlight that Tanjung Labian, including Sungai Bliss, was the center of Malaysian security forces operating to flush out Sulu gunmen who fled to the area. This is what you have mentioned earlier.
Right.
And the
shootout at the Kampung
Tandua. So let's just see what is the outcome of this 4 gunmen robbery. The next one will be by the Australian News Network. So Indonesian Navy issue statement on asylum seekers boat turned back. So the story is Indonesia's Navy has issued a statement based on testimony given by the crew who were found on a wooden boat stranded on the small island in the eastern Indonesia. And the crew reportedly told Navy investigators 2 Australian warships put 3 extra people on board their boat, an Indonesian and 2 from Albania, before they were escorted back to the Indonesian waters. I think this is what we reported yesterday as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think it's a follow-up to yesterday's news.
It's a follow-up. So it seems like Indonesia is a bit pissed off by Australia sending off the asylum seekers.
And also the fact that Australia's warships actually put 3 extra people on board their boat, an Indonesian and 2 people from Albania, and escorted back them to Indonesia.
So what do the Albanians have to do with this?
And also turns out that the crew reportedly told Navy investigators that 2 Australian warships that's just what you said, right? So they said that they were in the Australian waters on the 1st of May while taking 18 asylum seekers from India and Nepal towards Ashmore Reef.
Sounds a very sexy name for a place. So right now they are in Indonesia, is it?
I think they're still waiting for Tony Abbott to go over and have a conversation with them, because if you recall, yesterday he actually cancelled his trip to Indonesia when they were supposed to have a meeting to discuss about these asylum seekers whose boats were turned back. But Tony Abbott still hasn't contacted them. He's still busy with whatever he's doing, and I guess they're still waiting for that to happen, waiting for him to to make the move and go over or initiate a dialogue or something.
In fact, the issue of migrants and also refugees in Australia is a controversial issue. A lot of the locals there, they do not want outsiders to come to their shores.
Right.
And I mean, they are facing exactly the same situation. It's just that their constitution and also their laws are better protected than ours in terms of trying to protect the rights of refugees and also migrants. It's just that in this case, politics has come in and invade the Australian politics. The Australian people, because in that sense, the government is also trying to push for anti-immigrant policies and laws.
But I think it's a good thing that they actually turned back these boats and sent them back to Indonesia, because you know some of the things that happen to these people who come to Malaysia on boats, and they supposedly get hired by these Malaysian families to become maids, and then they don't get paid well. They
But then that's the problem of our country, not theirs, because a lot of these asylum seekers, I don't think they come to another country for the sake of exploiting the resources of another country. I think they seek for a better future for themselves or for their kids. And since they're asylum seekers, they might even be political refugees or economic refugees.
Right. So let's move on to the next news, which is reported by Washington Post. The global sextortion ring busted in the Philippines. So on Friday, Philippines authorities, with the aid of cybercrime investigators from Interpol, arrested at least 87 people in connection with perhaps one of the world's largest sextortion rings. The suspects, picked up in 7 locations and belonging to at least 3 syndicates, had allegedly been involved in an industrial-scale operation that tricked people on the internet into exposing themselves through webcams, live chats, and then blackmailed them.
Wow.
So it seems that these people actually send out like nude photographs of them. And this activity actually led to a death of a teenager in Scotland. I don't know, he was probably sexually frustrated or something.
Oh, wow. So according to the Philippines National Police Chief, Alan Purisima, the syndicate had created provocative, alluring, and even entirely fictitious social media accounts to entice unwitting victims into live cyber sex activities. So this is something really new to a lot of us, because this is a syndicate that really try to exploit, I think, the emotions and the sexuality of the younger generations. It seems so. So I guess the suicide of that teenager in Scotland is definitely heavily linked to probably being embarrassed or being shamed by participating in such activity.
I think this also happened in Hong Kong, because Hong Kong Police Inspector Louis Kwan Chong Yin said more than 470 people from Hong Kong were blackmailed in the same way last year, while about 160 had been stung so far this year. And investigators from US, Britain, Hong Kong, the Philippines, they're all collaborating closely now to track down the IP addresses of these culprits and monitoring the social media a lot closer.
And also the numbers are huge. It shows that maybe there's an underlying problem as well. Besides, I mean, of course, the criminals, they are just taking advantage of people's vulnerability. But I think for society, I think we are probably living in a very lonely capitalistic society that we look for something more, and unfortunately for some people, they are scammed into believing, there's this fictitious account or person on the net that would satisfy their needs, but unfortunately it's not the case.
I guess like cyber sex activities is not something new, but this kind of sextortion rings are new. And Philippines actually was also, I read it in an article that they are also famous for child porn. If you know, and then now there's this sextortion rings. I think they need to probably do something about it real soon.
Yeah, and probably it seems like the region of Philippines is maybe the law itself is not really strict on those kind of sexual
On
crimes.
social media.
And also on social media. So the next one is by ICRC, also related to the Philippines. 6 months after the typhoon Haiyan, major long-term recovery needs remain. 6 months after Typhoon Haiyan Yolande devastated the Visayas region of the Philippines, millions remained in precarious situation. And in fact, the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, one of the few organizations to deliver humanitarian assistance across all affected islands, has now launched an ambitious plan to geared towards supporting the long-term recovery of survivors.
So it's reported that the affected communities have shown remarkable strength, and many are on the road to recovery. However, there are also high levels of pre-existing poverty in the Philippines that are actually holding people back, and in some areas, basic services have not even been re-established. And this was commented by Richard Gordon, who is the chairman of the Philippines Red Cross.
So I guess the typhoon, in fact, increased the vulnerability of these poor people.
Yeah, definitely. And it increase the existing poverty, which is already really bad there.
Yeah, that's true. And since the disaster struck, the Philippine Red Cross, together with International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, IFRC, and the International Committee of the Red Cross, you're right. Red Cross, ICRC, and over 50 national societies from around the world have between them distributed emergency relief, including food, shelter, items, and cash to more than 1 million people. There's a lot of people being affected, 1 million.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good effort by IFRC and ICRC for collaborating and providing all these basic needs to people who need them.
And I've been to one of this. I've been a volunteer to disaster humanitarian aid before.
Okay.
It was a typhoon that struck some parts of Myanmar at the Irrawaddy area, and even after 2 years, the people are still suffering there.
Right.
Yeah, because the problem is like this. It is not about just immediate basic needs such as food, shelter, and cash.
Right, it's an ongoing
but
process.
it's also rebuilding their livelihood, because you cannot just give them fish all the time. You need to provide them the equipment for them to catch fish. In that sense, when after the disaster struck, everything just gone. Their houses, their life, their fishery equipment, their farming tools, and even their farming supplies and all that. So they have to start from zero, and even after 2 years, they are still struggling to move forward.
I think even in Malaysia, it's not handled well. When we had the major floods a few months back, the people kept waiting and waiting for this help to come, and then when our Prime Minister went over, he gave each of them like 250 ringgit or something.
There's not even Brim
right
price. Brim is like 500 something or 600 something.
Yeah,
if I'm
and
not mistaken.
that's crazy, because this 200 ringgit, like what you said, you can't just give them the fish every day. You need to actually do something more, like provide them with the equipment. So I guess like 200 ringgit will probably feed them for 1 day, and that's it.
For the whole family, isn't it?
Yeah, but they need something more than that. Probably beyond just financial aid, like improving the drains, try to
provide them better housing, and also provide them the equipment so that they can continue their employment. I mean, in this case, right, in the Philippines case, we can definitely learn better from how Japanese manage their disaster. I mean, we saw video footages of how terrible or how devastating the tsunami was when it struck the northern region of Japan. But we also saw like how much organized the Japanese people, the Japanese government, as well as the civil society there. Like even in terms of shelter, they have this inflated mini shelter that resemble a house. That I thought like, oh, this
it
is
was like
brilliant.
a mini cubicle.
Yeah.
It looked very comfortable.
Yeah, and even when people were distributing food, people were queuing, and I think, I mean, it's also about accountability. Like you want to provide the people or the victims of the disaster to be able to stand on their feet again and continue their life and provide a better livelihood for them, while trying to rebuild, maybe their houses, their whatever items that were being lost at that time.
So this recovery plan by the Philippines Red Cross is actually amounting to 320 million Swiss francs, which they will run over the next 3 years to help survivors rebuild their lives. And this program will focus on training these volunteers and strengthening their expertise in disaster management, which we were just discussing about, and disaster risk reduction. And
Philippines is a very typhoon-prone area. So I think having a disaster plan, they call it DRR, disaster reduction plan, then it would be much better for these villages because they know what to do when the typhoon, comes in. Just like the Japanese, they know what to do if the tsunami struck.
Yeah, because they know it's going to happen. So investing in all these programs is actually not going to be a loss. It's going to be what you call a valuable thing and an asset for you because it prepares you for whatever that's going to come.
Yeah. Can you imagine like the Japanese, they train their kids themselves year after year, like all these simulations of how this what to do when the tsunami struck. They do it every year, and they do it from when they are small until they reach an old age, just for that one moment where it will struck eventually. So I think you need to be prepared, even though the chances of it to be struck in your own shore would probably be like less than 1%, because when it struck, it will be really, really bad. And then
it's always good to prepare beforehand instead of regretting later.
Yeah, that's true. And now we move to another area which I mentioned, which is called Myanmar. And strong,
Thailand
and
too,
also
actually.
Thailand too. So strong earthquake shakes northern Myanmar and northern Thailand and Myanmar. We just talked about one disaster happening in the Philippines. Now another one happening in northern Thailand and Myanmar, and it's a strong one.
Yeah, it seems that a strong earthquake shook the northern Thailand and Myanmar on Monday evening, smashing windows, cracking walls and roads, and even damaging the Buddhist temples. But the good thing is no casualties were reported.
Oh, that's great. So how strong is this earthquake, the magnitude of it?
It's 6.3 magnitude.
That's quite high, isn't it? Yeah, and the airport of Chiang Rai, a northern Thai city near the epicenter of the magnitude 6.3 magnitude temblor, evacuated people from its terminal, where display signs and pieces of the ceiling fell. There were no damage to the runway of the flight disruptions. It was stated by the airport general manager.
So the head of the Buddha statue fell
at
the Udom Wari temple in Chiang Rai, according to the monk Prapatampong. A residential building at the temple also had exterior cracks and ceiling damage. And but residents only reported minor damage in their homes.
Too bad for the Buddha status.
Oh yeah.
Statue. So I think they can just fix the head back to the whole body.
But I think there were a lot of other damages as well to the temple, and it seems that one road was also split
Wow.
by
split.
multiple cracks. Wow, I've never seen a road split.
I've seen before, not like witnessing it face to face, but yeah, on the TV.
Yeah, on
you
TV,
know.
of course, but like for it to really happen. And it seems that is the worst of a waist-high gash about the length of 3 vehicles.
I see. Wow.
And people ran down the stairs in office buildings in Myanmar's largest city, Yangon. And severe shaking also was felt in Chiang Mai, Thailand's second largest city.
But we didn't feel it in Malaysia. I think we are.
No, probably if you're in Penang or Okada, you might feel it up in the north. But no, we're safe here.
Yeah, and it seems like Southeast Asia is quite an active place for quake and are often felt in surrounding nations. Thailand has several faults, though in recent times, quake centered in this country has been less severe than those in other Southeast Asian nations. And I agree with that. I think, in fact, talking about quake, Malaysia is the safest one.
But we've had our fair share of quakes here too. I mean, it didn't come from here. We got it from Aceh, I think.
Minor tremor, I guess.
Yeah, minor tremors. But yeah, we still experienced it. But
So
I guess Malaysians generally tend to be, I wouldn't say happy, but maybe excited because it's something that's so strange for us, and it's kind of fun when the ground starts shaking.
It's a very odd fun. It's just like people get excited on snow just because we don't have 4 seasons.
Exactly.
So
it's something that's so new for us, you know, like,
Yeah.
wow, we actually have an earthquake, and people are actually so excited, like, oh, you felt it? How come I didn't feel it? Or at least that's how it was back in Penang
really,
with my friends and all. Those who didn't feel it were actually quite upset.
so did you feel it?
I felt it once, but I don't think it was fun. It was crazy. we actually all ran out of the building. And
But for those areas that is prone to quake, I think having a good building that can withstand such quake, it would be, such earthquake, especially such magnitude on 6.3 is important, I think. So talking about Malaysia, we move to Channel News Asia. Is about King making rare appearance as Thailand enter crucial period. Thailand revered King Bhumibol Adulyadej made a rare public appearance on Monday to mark the 64th anniversary of his coronation, as the political turmoil gripping his kingdom enters a critical phase.
yeah, that's right. As we know now that Thailand is having a major election issue, as we reported yesterday, that they've been having that problem since November 2013, last year, and they have just set an election date on July 20th, but now they're getting pressure from the opposition to push that date further by 6 more months, which is not gonna be a good thing, in my opinion, because they've already waited for so long, and now to push it back another 6 months, and with all these demonstrations and the blockades happening, and I think they should actually try and push it in front if possible and not push it back.
I personally feel that the presence of King Bhumibol is actually a neutral one. So in that sense, it is trying to neutralize the toxic political climate in Thailand, because in that sense, when people are becoming more and more partisan, they need someone that they can see as a moral authority,
Exactly.
someone that they can trust to look up to, because or not, Thailand will be split apart, maybe the northern and the southern, where the red and the blue.
I think you're right, because it's reported here that this king is actually seen as a moral authority figure in Thailand, which has been deeply divided along political lines, like what you just mentioned. So I think his presence was what they actually needed in these times of turmoil.
And in fact, the streets near his coastal palace were a sea of yellow, as thousands of people wearing the king's signature color waved flags and shouted, "Long live the king!"
So apparently he's also been ill for a while, and he just got back from the hospital. So I don't know, maybe this is all for the better. Maybe things are gonna change.
I think so. I mean, the king's appearance come as embattled Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra faces two key legal challenges, which could see her removed from office over the coming days, while opposition leaders Abhisit Vijayjiva refused at the weekend to commit to elections mooted for July to end the political crisis. So I guess it's a symbolic one for him to appear in public. Although, even though you say that he is currently sick in that way. I mean, in that sense, I can see why the government are really trying. I mean, not the government, the society of Thailand really see the king as someone that is divine, someone that needs to be protected. Because at the end of the day, when people are becoming more and more divided, by political ideologies, at least they have the king that they can look up to.
So let's move on to the next news, which is about China and Vietnam. So China refuses Vietnam's call to stop oil drilling. So Vietnam demanded China to stop oil drilling operations in a disputed patch of the South China Sea again, saying on Monday that Beijing's decision to deploy a deep-sea rig over the weekend was illegal. But China dismissed that objection, saying that the activity was being carried out in China's territorial waters.
Interesting. And Beijing's increasingly assertive territorial claims to the water, which are thought to have large oil and gas deposits beneath the South China Sea, have actually angered Vietnam, the Philippines, and other claimants. The region is widely seen as a potential area of conflict, and totally agree with that. Any place that has oil and gas would definitely be a place that will have long-term disputes. But why only now? That's my question to China. Like, you have all these years to claim that area, but only now when you realize that it has some resources or minerals potential. So I don't think that we should allow China to reach its claim to the South China Sea.
And it's not just Vietnam, it's Vietnam and Philippines, and it has actually caused Philippines to sign a defense pact with Barack Obama. I think we reported that yesterday as well, the 10-year military agreement.
That's a long agreement.
So I don't know, maybe that could also spur Vietnam to have an agreement with the U.S., maybe? What do you think?
I totally agree with it. I mean, Vietnam has, since the economic reform, they have been having closer ties
that's true.
with the U.S. And in fact, Vietnam has accused China ships of cutting cables to its exploration vessel and harassing fishermen, as well as with the Philippines. So it seems like, I think, if ASEAN cannot protect itself from China, I think individual countries will definitely seek the U.S.
for help.
Just like what the Philippines did with the military pact deal.
So China is embarking on a strategy, I think, of gradually spreading its claims in the water, and by seeing that what it can get away with, believing that it's a very big country, China, and all the rest of us are comparatively smaller. So do you think that's why they're trying to bully all the ASEAN countries?
It could be. And also remember that China might be the biggest economy in in the future if the U.S. Unable to catch up with the economic, with their economic growth. So in that sense, it's trying all its best to conquer all the natural resources that is available in the global world. I mean, they went as far as Africa in search of for oil and gas, as well as partnering with some of the African countries. But in terms of Southeast Asia, I think we need to protect our natural resources as a whole, and that's the main reason why we have ASEAN. It's a political, economic, and also social, I would say, regional bloc defense for all the countries in Southeast Asia.
And this thing is, I think, like a competition between China and US to see who can be the biggest economic power in the world, maybe.
They have always been like that in competition.
And now Vietnam and Philippines is paying for it, and who knows that, which other countries might get dragged into this.
With the US, we have other problems, especially when it comes to deals like, free trade deals like the TPPA. But with China, it's like we are taking this particular water. We
There's
want
all
it.
the oil and gas in it. Yeah, and it's going to be ours.
It's different method of, trying to claim resources. So that's all for our news today.
Yeah, let's wrap it up and take a break and come back later.
We have our dialogue session.